welcome back to another video. Today in this video, I'm going to show you why the colors that you choose when you're putting together your color combinations really make a huge difference in the final outcome on your coloring pages. When you're putting together your color combinations, you really want to be able to see all that extra depth and dimension as well as that pop of color. I am going to show you how I would put together my color combinations and why I would choose particular colors over others. I'm going to show you some comparisons and why it makes such a huge difference. And then I'm going to color a couple flowers here in Johanna Basford's World of Flowers using my Prismacolors. This way you can see why your color choices when you're putting together your color combinations do make such a huge difference. If you check the description box down below, I'll have links down there for everything you see me use in this video, as well as links for my email list, my Facebook group, my Etsy shop, and my Patreon if you'd like to support me there. I also now have channel membership. If you would like to find more information out about that, you can click the join button down below the video. Okay, so the first thing I want to do in this video is show you why I would choose some of the colors that I do over other colors and explain to you why I make those choices. So we're just going to go over some different color combinations, and I'm going to show you how I would swap certain colors out for other colors. So this way, if you are a beginner and you're watching this video, it will be really helpful so that you can see exactly how to do this so that you could do it yourself. So I have three colors here: Blue Lake, Blue Slate, and Powder Blue. And I'm going to go ahead and swatch these colors out for you so that you can see what they look like. That was Blue Lake. Then next I have Blue Slate. And lastly, I have Powder Blue. So if you look at those three colors together, you can tell that the difference in the values are a little bit different. So you can tell that the Blue Lake is darker than the Blue Slate and that the Blue Slate is darker than the Powder Blue. But they are still very, very close to one another. In most cases, you want to put together three colors for your color combinations. Now, for instance, if I were to take this color combination to a coloring book and color a flower, the colors are going to be really, really close to one another, so it's going to be really difficult to see all that extra depth and dimension and the pop of color that we're looking for. If y'all have been watching my videos for quite some time, you know that I love to see things just pop off the page, and I love to see all of the bright, beautiful colors as well as the darkest colors. So I'm going to take this color combination and I'm going to show you now how I would change this up just a little bit so that I can create a little bit more depth and dimension. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Blue Lake and I'm going to use this as my mid-tone instead of the Blue Slate. And I'm going to go ahead and lay that down here. And for the Powder Blue, instead of using the Powder Blue, I'm going to swap that out for another lighter blue, the Sky Blue Light, which is a brighter shade of blue. So this is going to help with that extra pop of color. You see how that one is so much brighter than the Powder Blue? This one is much more muted, and then this one is quite a bit brighter. Then to be able to create all the extra added depth that I want to see on my coloring pages, I want to make sure that I have something that is a much greater value than this Blue Lake. So I want to go quite a bit darker. So I have the Indian Throne Blue, and I'm going to go ahead and lay that down here and look at the difference. But can you see the difference now between this color combination and this color combination? If I were to lay this down on an object on my coloring page, everything would just sort of flow and kind of come together, and you really wouldn't be able to see that much of a difference between the colors. Yes, this would create a really pretty flower, but you're not going to have all that extra depth and dimension and pop of color that you want to see, or that I like to see on my coloring pages. So by taking the Powder Blue and swapping that out for the Sky Blue Light, which is a much brighter shade of light blue, that is going to make all the difference in the world, because this color, since it's brighter, is going to give you that pop of color. And then by taking my Blue Lake, which I was using for my darkest color, and moving that to my mid-tone, that gives me a huge difference in the values of these two colors, the Blue Lake and the Sky Blue Light. So that's going to help the Sky Blue Light really stand out so much more on my coloring pages. Then by choosing the Indian Throne Blue as my darkest color, I'm creating a huge difference in the values of my darkest color and my mid-tone. So now I've got three colors that have a much greater difference in value, so that when I lay them down on my coloring page, I will be able to see all that extra added depth and dimension and the pop of color with the Sky Blue Light. So we can go and change that up again So let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to keep my sky blue light, and I'm going to again use the blue lake. So you can take your mid-tone and your lightest tone, and you can swap out whatever you used for your darkest color. And in this case, I'm going to use peacock blue because this one is quite a bit different than this one. This one is more of a blue-green than these here. So by adding this one and creating a big difference between the undertones of the color, that also helps me to create a lot of extra added depth and kind of put a little bit of a twist on the flower that I would be coloring. Now, if I thought these colors were too close in value, even though they both have a different undertone, I could always swap out the blue lake and I could go back to the blue slate. So let's go ahead and try that and see what that looks like. And I'll put it right here under this one so that you can see the difference in the two color combinations. So now I have my blue slate, which I had used over here, and then I have my sky blue light. Okay, so now look at the difference between these two now that I lightened up the midtones. So now for this one, we've got the two different colors with the two different undertones. This one has a lot more green in it, and it's a pretty dark color. I lightened up the mid-tone so that I could have a bigger difference in the values of these two colors, and I've still got the pop of color with that sky blue light. But these are some ways that you can go through and play with different color combinations, switch them up and play around with them a little bit before you bring them to your coloring pages. So you can see that if you go just a little bit lighter, like I did with the peacock blue, even though it had a lot more green in it, you can just lighten up your mid-tone just a little bit more and then go into your lightest color. But all of the colors here still have a much bigger difference in the value of the colors with a little bit of a twist, much more so than this color combination over here. So if you start with a color combination and put some colors together and you notice that the values in the colors are not far enough apart, you can play around with it a whole lot or just spend a little bit of time trying to put together a color combination that you feel like is really, really going to work. So I'll go ahead and share one more color combination with you that I think would be really pretty together. So I'm going to put it right here because what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the Indian Throne Blue for one of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor set. So I have Sky Blue Light and then Blue Lake, and then I have Indigo Blue. But these are all really pretty, and you still, for this one, have a pretty big difference in the values of the colors, which is what you want to create all that extra added depth and dimension and your pop of color. And all I did was start in one place and work with them and swap out some colors, move some colors around just a little bit. And I have created all of these different color combinations. But you can go through and do the same thing again, and you can even swap out your darkest blue again, maybe swap out your mid-tone, and even swap out your lightest color if you wanted to, and just go down the whole entire page and you would end up with a whole bunch of different color combinations that you can use. Okay, so now we're going to bring some of those colors to our coloring book. So here is where we swatched out the colors. First, I'm going to take the Blue Lake, the Blue Slate, and the Powder Blue, and I'm going to show you what that would look like on one of these flowers. Then we're going to swap it out and I'm going to choose one of these other ones. And so this way you can see on the flowers why it's so important to choose colors with a greater difference in value between each one of your colors. So I have my Blue Lake, my Blue Slate, and my Powder Blue. And I'm going to go through and use these colors that are pretty close to one another. And I'm going to color this flower just as I normally would. So first I have my Powder Blue, and I'm going to reserve my highlighted area here like I always do. Then I have Blue Slate, and I'm going to lay this color down, staying out of that highlighted area. Now if y'all remember from my previous tutorials, you know that I always lay my color down that I'm using for my highlight first because I want to be able to preserve that area and not go into that space. And in this case, I'm just doing it a little bit in the center, but it's really hard for me to be able to tell where I laid that color because again, these colors are so close together. Now I have my Blue Lake, and I'm just laying a layer of this color everywhere I think I want to be able to create a little bit more depth. So I think we should come back and lay another layer, and I'm just going to go back in the same order. So this is the color I was using for my highlighted area. This is the Powder Blue. And then I have Blue Slate. And so I'm just going to add another layer of this and try again to stay out of that highlighted area. I'm pulling the darker color down just a little bit and trying to get a nice blend. Now I do want to say that it is okay to color like this. Now if you just want to put together some colors and the shades that you choose are closer together like this and you like this look, that is completely fine. Don't stress out about putting colors together and thinking that you're doing it incorrectly or that you're not choosing the right colors, because doing this is fine, and once you get enough layers down here on the paper, it will still be really pretty. You could even use a Posca pen to add some extra highlights or do all kinds of things with this if you wanted to. You can use the white of the paper if you wanted to, just to create that extra pop of color. And you can totally make these colors work even though the values are rather close together. Now I have my mid-tone and I'm gonna just go over this color, blend it in just a little bit more, pull it down just a little bit. I'm gonna do the same thing on this petal. And then I'm going to come back with my powder blue and I am going to blend all of this together. And here I'm just trying to use a little bit of white of the paper just so that we can see that extra pop of color right in that space. That is still very pretty, and if I wanted to keep adding more color, I can totally do that. So if I went in with very dark pressure with this darkest color that I chose, the Blue Lake, I can create a bit of depth and dimension if I wanted to, just by going around the edges here. But you can see that this is still super pretty, and if you wanted to use this color combination, you totally could. But I want to show you on the other flower how you could change it up to make it look even better. So now I'm just blending it out with my lightest color. I always like to use my lightest color to pull all of the colors together, but that still made a really pretty flower. It's just really, really light. Now if I wanted to use this color combination and I wanted to bring in a fourth color and really add to that, I could do that, and I could use my darkest color to add a whole lot of extra depth and dimension. But now I'm going to come down here to this flower and I'm going to show you how I would change it up and how it can look so different. Now here's some of the color combinations that I had created, and I think for this other flower I am going to go with the Indanthrone Blue, the Blue Lake, and the Sky Blue Light. So I have my Sky Blue Light and I'm just going to again preserve my highlighted area in the center of each one of these petals, and I'm going to color this one exactly like I colored the other one. Now I have the Blue Lake, and remember this is the color that I used for my darkest color in this flower here, but in this case it's my mid-tone. So I'm just going to blend a little bit of this in here, and you could see already the huge difference in the values of these two colors. Now here where I have this other petal laying over this petal, I want to make sure that that area is much darker, just because I want to show that this flower is laying over the top of this one, and then here we have this flower laying over the top of this one. So again, we need to make sure that we show that. So this petal is going to be quite a bit darker than some of the others. Now I have my Indanthrone Blue. I am going to come in here and lay this color right over the top of my mid-tone and blend it in quite a bit, but you could see already the difference in the colors, and I'm only on the first layer. I'm going to come around here around the edges because that's how I like to create quite a bit of extra depth and dimension. And then here where I have this flower laying over the other one, I want to make this quite a bit darker so we could see the separation between these two, and it looks as though this flower is laying over this one. And then I'm going to go very lightly over this area here because I have this piece laying over the top, and I could always come back and do the same thing on that one, but the difference in the colors was not that great, so I think it would be a little bit more difficult to be able to see that. It's so much easier for me when I put together the right color combinations to be a little bit more artistic in my coloring, I guess, or a little bit more creative. I like to go over these lines here and add a little bit of dimension with my darkest color. And then here where I have this petal laying over the top, I'm going to use my Indian Throne Blue, and I'm going to come all the way down this way and add a little bit of this color. And now I'm going to do the same thing over here. So now I'll need my mid-tone to go ahead and blend some of that color out. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And like I said, this one is going to have a much smaller highlighted space just because this flower is laying over the top of this one. But can you already see the difference that it makes? You're just going to be able to see a whole lot more depth and dimension. Your highlighted area is going to pop out quite a bit more because there is a greater difference in the values of your colors that you chose. And it just all comes together so much nicer. Now I have my sky blue light, and this is going to make quite a bit of difference because I'm just pulling all the colors together now. Using your lightest color to pull everything together really helps to smooth everything out and help everything to come together. And of course you still can come back and lay another layer, but you can already see the big huge difference between both of these flowers. So if I wanted to very lightly go around these spaces here, just like I did on the other flower, I can do that. The thing is, I don't feel like it's going to make that big of a difference. And again, that's because the difference in the colors are not as great as the difference in the colors in this flower. But it is creating a little bit more extra added depth. If I wanted to come down here and do the same thing, just to be a little bit extra artistic, I could totally do that as well. But because it's laying right on top of this color already, it's not making that big of a difference. So that's as much depth and dimension and pop of color you're going to get with this flower. So I'm going to come in here and do all of the things that I would normally do on a flower with my darkest shade and show you how much depth and dimension you can create with this color combo. And I'm going to go around and do this to each one of the petals, and I'm going to speed it up to music just so you can see how it comes together. So I have finished both of them, and both of them are pretty. As you saw, I did add a little bit of stickles to the center. I used my favorite color. This is Sunburst. Now I have Sea Glass, and I'm just going to add a little bit of stickles to both of them. And the stickles will help to add a little bit more depth and dimension. So let's go ahead and do it to this one now. Trying to do them both exactly the same just so you can see the difference between using colors that are much closer to one another or colors that have a much bigger difference in value. There's both of our flowers. They are done. And like I said, you can do this either way. You can use colors that are much closer in value if you want to. But taking the time choosing a much darker color, a much lighter, brighter color, and then a color that is right in between those two colors will make a huge difference in all the extra added depth and dimension you're able to create on anything that you're coloring. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, you can put those in the comments below. Everything you've seen me use in this video will be linked in the description box below so that you can easily find it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Happy coloring. Bye.